Throughout my years playing video games, Fallout has truly been one of my favorite franchises in gaming. One of the very first titles I ever played growing up was Fallout 3. And from there I went on to play Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 at different times and loved those as well. It's unfortunate we haven't seen a game since. Yeah, we don't talk about that one. Besides Fallout 76, we really have received exceptional titles in this series. And combine the sales of all these games, including ones I haven't played like Fallout 1 and 2, we get over 50 million sales. This is one of the biggest franchises in gaming history. And I wanted to make this video since the second season of the Fallout TV series is coming out soon. It's probably already out by the time this video is out, but still, it's a great time to look at the franchise as a whole and pick my favorite game. In this video though, I'm going to be comparing these titles in a multitude of different categories and decide which one is my favorite. But before we get into things, make sure to comment down below how you guys would rank the Fallout franchise. And if you do enjoy this video, it would mean a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe as we are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. With that being said, let's get right into it. Now before we get into things, let me list out the categories we will be discussing in this video. We will be talking about, in order, the setting, RPG mechanics, combat, side content, companions, the narrative, and lastly DLCs. I think these are all the major components that make up the Fallout franchise and what we will be using to decide which one is my favorite. Each Fallout game I've played thrives in their own ways, so I want to give a wide range of categories. But with that, let's jump right into our first category, and that is the setting. I think the location in which these games take place is such an important aspect and can really change your experience with the title. For each topic, we will start with Fallout 3 and end with Fallout 4. So, starting with Fallout 3, I absolutely adore the Capital Wasteland. I think this setting perfectly encapsulates the post-apocalyptic feeling that I want to have when playing a game post getting nuked. There really is just nothing pretty or hopeful out there in the wasteland. Outside of the few genuine settlements you find throughout the world, everything is just evil. Everything is trying to take you out, enslave you, steal from you. It's just a terrible time throughout. And it's perfect. It's what I need from a Fallout game. It is desolate and truly feels like a wasteland. At times, the world can feel pretty bland and empty, but I feel like it should look like that, and there's a weird charm to it. I have such fond memories of walking around, listening to the radio. There was nowhere else in the world I wanted to be. I also adored the architecture throughout. All the rundown buildings and the way certain towns and homes are laid out in ruin. It nails that Art Deco style which I associate so much with the Fallout series. Moving on from that, I want to get into one of my favorite parts about this game, and that is DC. It's one of the best locations in the Fallout franchise. Seeing places like the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial in this post-apocalyptic world was a sight to behold and still looks gorgeous today. And DC as a whole is so well thought out, from the destroyed and rundown buildings, the tons of rubble everywhere, the trenches and battles that happen against mutants. Everything is so intense. I feel like I'm in a war traversing through these areas, and some of my favorite memories come from these locations. And having the subway system basically being your only means of transportation and traversal is awesome. Sure, it's kind of barren at times, but it continues to reinforce that idea of nothingness. Like, society really doesn't have anything going for them right now. I remember going through the metro when I was younger and being so scared I actually stopped playing for a while. They do such a great job of nailing the atmosphere. It is so scary being in basically the pitch dark besides your little Pip-Boy light and just hearing ghouls screeching all around you. It was not a fun time. The last thing I want to mention here are a few of my favorite locations. From Megaton, Rivet City, some of the vaults, the Oasis, Little Lamplight. There's so many great locations and they are all so unique from one another, which I find so impressive. In such a desolate world, there's such variety, but it never feels out of character to the world at hand. I think exploring and discovering all these locations is so much fun. The main story leaves a lot of the world to still be explored, and I will just place a map marker in a corner I haven't gone to and simply see what I find. That is so integral in an open world, and Fallout 3 nailed its exploration. It's some of the best in my mind. I have such an amazing time exploring this world, and no matter how many times I go back to this game, that part never gets old. But with that, let's move over to our next game, which is Fallout New Vegas. Now, New Vegas goes down a completely different route compared to 3 in terms of the feel of their world. Compared to the Capital Wasteland, the Mojave Wasteland does not feel anywhere near as desolate. Yes, it's a desert and it is very empty similar to 3, but it does not bring the same energy of, oh yeah, I can tell this place got nuked. Which does make sense, as majority of the nukes that were shot towards the area were taken out by Mr. House prior to them hitting the ground. So thanks to him, barely any actual warheads hit the surrounding area. Which is evident because New Vegas is a lot more of a civilized and populated area. As in Fallout 3, you saw super mutants and ghouls about as often as humans. I personally enjoy the more desolate feel that Fallout 3 brings, but New Vegas has its own quirks and aspects I really like as well. Now, New Vegas was not developed by Bethesda, who are the main people behind Fallout now. This was made by Obsidian, which I believe is fairly evident on all fronts, as you see Obsidian's strengths and weaknesses here. Obsidian thrives in its RPG mechanics, which we'll get into later, but in terms of exploration, it was limited compared to 3. There were a lot more locations in Fallout New Vegas, that's not what I'm trying to say, but I didn't have the same desire to seek those locations out as I did in 3. Where Fallout 3 had the subway systems, building with multiple floors, more interesting world layout and design. In the Mojave Wasteland, we don't get that really, we just got a desert. And I found exploring this desert just to be less engaging. It was still immensely fun. Again, with the radio, I lost myself in the world still, but not nearly as much. I think the aspect that made the Mojave Wasteland stand out more was its world building, because I think it's brilliant, and that being a big reason why the world feels so alive. We are presented with all these factions. I'll get into them more later, but we have these functioning societies that clash and have differences, and you feel their influence throughout the world and have random encounters with them. You notice their impact on the wasteland, and it adds a lot of enjoyability on that front. With it being a lot more of a civilized area, they do a great job of taking advantage of that and having the people be a lot more important in this game. And along with that, I think I enjoy the major locations a bit more here, as there was simply more to do in each town you came across. Like, exploring the Strip is such a core gaming experience for me, is such a memorable location, and is iconic in the Fallout series. I also want to mention that even though New Vegas brings a different energy to this series, I still love that energy, I just don't prefer it. They nail the Western feel, and the radio enhances that experience. But the last point I want to bring up is that the exploration is not nearly as good compared to 3. Like I said before, I would just place map markers and find so much fun stuff in the Capital Wasteland. If New Vegas had more development time, maybe it would have been different, but the random locations and areas that Fallout 3 had really enhanced the exploration, and New Vegas didn't have that. But overall, New Vegas really does its own thing with the setting, and there are some aspects I don't love, but I still adore the Mojave Wasteland, and fell in love with so many elements of it. With that though, let's move into our last game for the topic, in Fallout 4. Fallout 4 in general feels vastly different compared to 3 in New Vegas, with the other two just kinda being reskins in some aspects like graphically, combat, and things of that sort. We see an evident jump though in sheer graphical quality here in Fallout 4. And on one side, I love it. The Commonwealth is an absolute joy to explore. There's so much variety in terms of locations to discover and go through. Compared to 3 in New Vegas, this is definitely the most dense world in the series. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's good density. I think a lot of the locations you explore in Fallout 4 are great, but outside of the glowing sea, no single location really left me with much. Unlike the wide range of areas in Fallout 3 and New Vegas that I still remember now. But I still think Boston is a marvel to go through. As a pure city to explore, it probably is the best in the series. The vertical density and the amount of buildings you're able to explore is amazing. There are so many crazy fights that I would get in while I was in Boston, and the combat really enhanced that experience, but that's for a later section. Boston and the glowing sea are the two highlights in terms of areas in my mind. We also have Diamond City, which I think is pretty cool and I love the design of it, But out of the major cities from the other games, I do think it is the weakest compared to like a Megaton or the Vegas Strip. I just felt like those other cities had more character to them. But moving on from that, I do think Fallout 4 definitely feels the most hopeful out of the 3 games I've talked about today. This world doesn't have the same bleakness as even New Vegas, and nowhere close to 3. I don't want to sound like I just want the world to be straight depression and sadness, but I enjoyed that energy the most in 3 compared to the other 2 titles. But on top of that, I loved the weather system in 4 and think it added a lot to the overall experience. I also don't love the factions here, as I mentioned in New Vegas, where the different people groups highly elevated the world around you and improved my time with exploring and viewing the world. That wasn't the case with 4 that much, as the Institute, the Minutemen, the Railroad, the Brotherhood, they didn't impact the world on a gameplay scale compared to New Vegas, and I wish they did. And lastly, the settlements were a new feature here, and I'm very mixed on it. I have a lot of fun building in this game, and the concept of it is awesome. And I also think with the addition of settlements, it really encourages exploring, as every piece of junk is useful to pick up. But I think it quickly becomes repetitive, especially with all those damn quests.
They're gonna need your help.
I think overall, Fallout 4's setting has a lot going for it. It is underappreciated if anything. I had a blast exploring the same way I did with 3 and New Vegas. Now it is time to rank them from worst to best in this category. First place will get 3 points, second will get 2, and last will get 1. In first place, we got Fallout 3. I just think the Capital Wasteland is one of the most memorable settings for me in gaming, and I love the desolate feel it brings. In second, we got New Vegas. The Mojave Wasteland is a joy to explore, and it's below 3 as I didn't like the vibe as much and I found exploration to be more enjoyable and rewarding in Fallout 3. And in last, we have Fallout 4. Don't get me wrong, I still adore the Commonwealth. I just have the least memories about this setting, and it didn't stick with me as much. But it is still addicting to traverse through and find things. With that being said though, that was a long first section, but we can move to our next topic, which is all about RPG mechanics. We are going to kick things off right away with Fallout 3. Now Fallout 3 in the grand scheme of things doesn't have some wildly large range of RPG mechanics, but I think it does enough to satisfy my RPG itch. Starting off, we have our very traditional character creation system that Fallout has. We have our special, where we have our 7 main attributes, and we pick how to invest the points we have into them. So things like strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck, all of that is gone through and you create your build. Then we also have skills and perks that you get the chance to upgrade each level. You get a certain amount of points to invest in skills, and you get a new perk each level. It isn't anything crazy in depth in Fallout 3. It really isn't life or death on what you pick. Your experience with the game isn't going to drastically change unlike other RPGs. It's very simple, but I still enjoy it. I found it fun upgrading my lockpicks, science, medicine, to be able to do more things and unlock more loot. It was satisfying being able to pick a more difficult lock or hack a stronger terminal. And I found the perk system to be great, as they were specific things and not just barely noticeable upgrades. It actually added to your experience with the game. But the reason I said your choices and skills don't have too many consequences was due to there not being much variety in choices. And those choices not really being locked behind any sort of skill checks. The only skill check in dialogue was for speech. And your choices don't really have that big of an impact on the overarching narrative, so it lags in the front of consequence and variety in decision making. But you still have choices that dictate the outcome of side quests, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Just overall, your character build doesn't play the biggest role in how the game proceeds to go. But still, it has solid RPG mechanics and does enough for me. But with that, let's jump over to Fallout New Vegas. Now, this title right here, this is the section where Obsidian truly shines. The RPG side of this game is phenomenal. There's such a range of depth behind character builds, decisions, all of it is enhanced here. Starting with character creation, it matters vastly more in comparison to 3, as these skills are used and brought up constantly throughout the game. There are so many more skill checks, so what you pick and choose really matters here. You also get perks at every 2 levels instead of 1, and they re-added traits, which were prevalent in the older Fallout games. So you're able to pick these traits that give you a pro, but also a con, so it adds even more depth. That's really just the main way to describe this game. It's just more in depth across the board. In terms of their skills within dialogue, there are a wide range of skill checks outside of speech that will affect the outcome of missions. So your build really changes how you go about each quest. But I think what makes Fallout New Vegas stand out the most is its reputation system. You have this reputation system with every faction in the game, and based on the actions that you pick, you'll be able to do certain things and get benefits, or the complete opposite, and then an entire group of people hate you now. I think this system is handled brilliantly, and I have not seen many other games handle it as well as New Vegas did. All the groups like the NCR, Legion, Mr. House, all your choices affect how they see you. So it isn't always a black and white, right or wrong answer. You take into consideration the groups and people and try to decide what is best for the Mojave Wasteland. And depending on these choices, you get different quests, you unlock different areas, you get price discounts, certain groups will attack you on sight. Your choices and decisions heavily impact the entirety of the wasteland and the outcome of it, from small side quests to the overarching plot of the game. Fallout New Vegas really is just a masterclass when it comes to RPG mechanics. But let's move to our last game on this topic in Fallout 4. And unfortunately, it drops the ball here on many levels. With Fallout 4 moving more into the action side of an action RPG, the actual RPG side of it was dumbed down extremely. The systems are still there, but the quality of them isn't great. In terms of character creation, skills were removed, which I personally think is a bad move. There is also no more level cap, so you can eventually invest in every possible perk in the game. You don't really have to pick and choose what you want. The builds don't matter so much since you can be everything. And now perks are the main focus in upgrading your character, as you get a perk point every level, and your special investments dictate what perks you can get. And unlike the other Fallout games, you are not able to kill every single NPC, as there were priority characters that you were unable to take out, which just sucks. And when talking about dialogue, gosh, it got really simplified. Compared to Fallout 3 and New Vegas, where you had a wide range of options in dialogue, and in New Vegas having a wide range of skill checks in dialogue, there is none of that in Fallout 4, as is tied to charisma, and your option being a different color depending on how likely it is to succeed. And on the topic of dialogue, it doesn't matter. No matter what you pick, you're really not going to make a difference whatsoever to the conversation. You have choices of like a positive answer, a more sarcastic one, a bad one, and none of it does anything. The dialogue is just outright not fun to engage with whatsoever. Especially after Obsidian's masterclass in New Vegas, this is just embarrassingly bad. Characters don't react all that differently to what you say, and your choice variety just kinda comes down to narratively who you want to side with in the end. And I know this simplification in dialogue is probably due to the fact that we have a voice protagonist, and I like voice protagonists, but if you have to sacrifice good dialogue for it, I would rather them be silent. But yeah, overall, Fallout 4 really is just not a good RPG. It still is one since they have these mechanics, but they are not fleshed out whatsoever in my mind. To finally rank these games, in first we have Fallout New Vegas. This was really not a competition, it's just better in every way in this aspect. Following that, we have Fallout 3 in second. It doesn't have any variety in the main story, but I think there's more role-playing opportunity and better character builds. And lastly, we have Fallout 4, which I think worsens the mechanics on almost every scale, which is a shame to see because it could have massively improved the game. But with that, let's jump over to our next topic, which is the combat. Starting off with Fallout 3, yeah, the combat is simply not good here. It is the most basic and passable combat system. I don't think it's anywhere close to being bad enough to actually affect the game. It just definitely doesn't improve the experience at all. I think this game has solid gun variety, the repairing system is fine, but the gunplay itself leaves a lot to be desired. But I think the series' saving grace is having VATS. This makes playing the game so much more enjoyable, as the handling of the weapon and shooting is very janky and clunky, So having this VAT system that automatically targets the enemy, you can pick the buy parts you want to shoot, is great. It makes the combat that much easier to engage with. This section's honestly going to end up being pretty short, as there's not much to say here, at least for Fallout 3, as it's just point and shoot. There's not some in-depth movement system, crazy gun customization, great enemy AI. You point and shoot and use VATs. You upgrade your small and big gun skill, same with energy weapons, and that helps increase gun accuracy. They do have limb crippling, which is a good feature and gives some more depth to where you shoot an enemy. And then there's some perks, and also your agility and luck affect your accuracy with VATs. So your character build does play into the combat, which is nice. But the combat itself is just so nothing. I don't have any strong opinion on it since it's so basic. Okay, I do have a strong opinion, it's nowhere close to being good, but it exists and functions fine for the game. Let me end off talking about the enemy variety since each game has its own feel. Fallout 3 really focuses on the super mutants and ghouls as the main enemies, especially the super mutants within DC, and I have a good time fighting them, but the mutants can definitely be a bit damage spongy sometimes. Overall, Fallout 3's combat just leaves a lot to be desired though. But moving on from it, we can jump into Fallout New Vegas. And yeah, for the most part, it's similar to Fallout 3, but I do think it improves on the very basic combat system in a few ways. In the end, I still don't really like the combat all that much, but there are definitely improvements. Starting off, they added some more ammo types. In Fallout 3, you just had your basic ones for the gun you were using. But in New Vegas, you got things like Incendiary, Armor Piercing, Hollow Point, so there's definitely some more depth there. Enemy AI is also improved a bit, and they are smarter and move more dynamically. Stealth also has more of a role with some skills and perks to increase damage, so they add more depth, but when it comes to the actual feel of the combat is identical when comparing it to Fallout 3, which is understandable because of the time crunch that Obsidian were under to make this game. I would reuse a lot of the combat and animations for that, and I believe they focus on the important things that made the game so great. Just the combat really remains the same compared to 3, and the VATS does work a bit differently, and they pivoted to using damage threshold instead of damage resistance. I'm pretty sure this is how it works, but it's basically you having a specific damage threshold, and if the weapon doesn't do more, you're not really going to be taking damage, and vice versa for enemies. I think that explanation was right, but where I think Fallout New Vegas is worse than Fallout 3 is in its enemy variety, as I don't really enjoy fighting the Cazadors and Rad Scorpions that much, and you fight a lot of them. But overall, New Vegas' combat is so similar to 3's, but it gives some more depth and variety, which is nice. But now to move to Fallout 4, this is where the series finally got the combat somewhere. There was a complete rehaul on so many levels with this game. Sure, it holds the same concept of point and shoot and having your VATs, but it's like actually so much fun now. I had an amazing time with the combat here, and it probably is the best aspect of Fallout 4. I mentioned it before, but they really lean into the action side of the action RPG, and the gunplay improved because of it. To start off with the feeling itself, it feels brand new. How I said with New Vegas and 3 how they both feel very clunky and not smooth whatsoever, that is not the case here in 4, as the movement feels really good and you enjoy getting in fights, while in the previous 2 games, you just had to fight. The main system I want to bring up here that I think really elevates the gunplay and combat in Fallout 4 is the modding and customization. We reach a whole other level here in terms of being able to mod your weapons and change how they work. You can change so much, from barrels, scopes, stocks, multiple kinds of ammo types. You can even upgrade your power armor and change the look of it. Fallout 3 and New Vegas had decent gun variety, but they didn't have any high level of customization for those guns. But Fallout 4, some of the most fun I had was completely modding and kitting out my new weapon I found, or using some old weapon at the start of the game, but being able to customize it and make it usable in the later game. I think compared to 3 and New Vegas, your stats matter a little less in the combat, as it more relies on your own skill, as there's no skill points, so it's just perks that help boost any gameplay aspect that you need. I feel like if you had to pick between the two, I think this was the right decision, at least on a gameplay level. Of course, I would much rather have an in-depth character build and playstyle along with great gameplay, like a Cyberpunk. But we don't here, and it wasn't like 3 and New Vegas had a wide range of character builds in terms of combat. So I found Fallout 4's system and gunplay to be the best in the series, and had a great time with it. Overall, the combat in Fallout 4 is a major step up for the series. But to now rank the games for this section, it's pretty obvious Fallout 4 is going to be first. It just simply is the best in terms of combat. Next we have Fallout New Vegas. It's basically the same as 3, but it has a bit more variety. And in last we have Fallout 3, as the combat is just not fun at all. You can say the same thing about New Vegas just has a few more mechanics. But Fallout 3's combat just really does nothing for me in terms of enjoyability. But with that, let's jump into our next topic, which is the side content. We will kick things off once again with Fallout 3, and their side quests here are truly brilliant. One of my least favorite aspects in open worlds nowadays are the abundance of side missions where the majority of them are simply there just to be completed. I would much prefer a smaller scope of side content that is much more dense and meaningful, and that is exactly what Fallout 3 does. Every single quest you come across has this intriguing plotline to it, and is what makes exploring so fun, as there are a plentiful amount of missions that you would miss out on if you didn't explore. And since there's such a small amount of them, it's an exciting moment when you find one. And there's not just great side quests, but even unmarked quests. Some of my favorite missions include the Wasteland Survival Guide. I feel like some people don't like this one, but it's just so nostalgic and iconic in my mind. I associate it so much with my experience of Fallout 3. Oasis is so memorable, where we meet Harold, who is part man and tree and wants to die, but he's worshipped by these people. It's such a weird and twisted quest, and I love it. The Replicating Man is such a cool connection to Fallout 4 and the Institute, and after playing Fallout 4, the quest is just even better. The whole mission between Little Lamplight and Big Town. The quest to blow up Megaton or disarm the nuke is ingrained in my mind till the day I die. The Superhuman Gambit, where you have like these heroes and villains fighting each other. I could go on with countless other missions that I love. Even the one with the Cannibal Town Andale. I'm pretty sure it's just an unmarked quest and just happens if you explore the town. Stuff like that is what makes Fallout 3 so special. Even some other unmarked missions. We have the Dunwich Building one, which is so well done with its Lovecraftian horror and the story we experience with Jamie and the Obelisk. And lastly, the vaults are just such a strong point in the franchise itself, and one of the most enjoyable aspects to engage with in the series. For Fallout 3, we had Vault 108 with the duplicate Garys, and Vault 92 with its mind control experiment. The vaults have truly some of the most horrifying and intriguing storylines in the series, and it's not even close. It's no surprise to me that the Capital Wasteland is one of my favorite settings of all time. Not just with its atmosphere, but the content within it is phenomenal. And the last aspect I love about all these side quests is how there are multiple ways of going about completing them. Choice variety is less prevalent in the main plot, but you have so much influence on how these side missions go, and I adore it. This title just truly has unbelievable side content throughout. But with that, let's jump over to Fallout New Vegas, which also does not slack in this department at all. Compared to Fallout 3, we get a lot more side quests throughout, like triple the amount. 3 had 17 side quests compared to 75 in New Vegas. I think that's actually more like quadruple the amount. But with New Vegas, the quality didn't go down across the board. There's still a wide range of memorable missions here that I love and really capture the beauty of this game. To start off with the structure of formatting compared to Fallout 3, it is a bit different. In Fallout 3, each mission felt very isolated from the world at hand and didn't play too much into the world building. They were isolated, wacky stories that I loved with some great moral choices. And even though Fallout New Vegas still had some of those things, for the most part, these quests tie a lot more into the overall world at hand, and moral choices and decision making are at the forefront as well. Fallout 3 still definitely had choice variety in their side quests, but it felt isolated to the mission itself. New Vegas, on the other hand, connected the overarching situation the world was in, along with the different factions. To get into some of my favorite quests from this game, we have Beyond the Beef, where we investigate this disappearance in a casino and uncover a cannibal plot with the White Glove Society and decide if we want to support them or expose them. This is one of the most memorable side missions I've ever done in a game before. I don't know why, but I'll never get tired of a cannibal story in a video game. They're always awesome. But we also have quests like Come Fly With Me, which is arguably equally as memorable. Here you have the chance of helping ghouls launch themselves into space, but you could also sabotage it, or help them with their Nightkin issue. The prompt and concept of these quests are just so absurd and I love them. It makes Fallout as a whole so unique. Then we have like arguably the best unmarked quest in the franchise, and it has to do with one of the vaults, Vault 11. Experiencing this unmarked mission where there is no way to find it besides entering the vault was such a horrifying experience. The experiment of this vault was to see if the residents would take out one of their own members each year to keep the life support on in the vault. They did this year after year and eventually rebelled and elected the Overseer to be the next victim. Following that, a civil war broke out, leaving only 5 members alive. They then decided to refuse to sacrifice anyone else, and the vault computer proceeded to congratulate them for their refusal, and they were allowed to leave the vault. On hearing this news, 4 out of the 5 took themselves out, and what happened to the last member is unknown. This quest truly shook me to my core. But overall, the side content in New Vegas is so unbelievably special, and I think it rivals Fallout 3 in every aspect. The choice variety is dense and difficult to decide with moral ambiguity throughout so many missions. The plot of the quests are unique and wacky. Fallout New Vegas produced near perfect side content. But with that, let's jump into Fallout 4. Now, my experience with the side content in Fallout 4 doesn't quite reach the level of New Vegas or 3. Honestly, I think it's a decent way off, but I still find it to be enjoyable for the most part, with there being some great quests. Now, for the structure, Fallout 4 engages with a much different approach. With this game, we see a lot more Radiant quests. This was something that was introduced in Skyrim, and we see it applied here. The Radiant quests don't completely replace the typical side content by any means, but I do think it deters the experience slightly. We have these Radiant quests, too many settlement missions with no depth. Where Fallout 4 really shines though, is in its environmental storytelling. That is a major focus here, where a lot of the locations we explore have their own story to be told through the environment, nodes, terminals, and things of that sort. Some examples are Pigment's Gallery, University Point, and Malden Middle School. There are stories here to be told simply from the environment, and it's awesome. But there are still good, typical side quests, like the Silver Shroud, where you play as this comic book vigilante, completing objectives in Good Neighbor, and also the Secrets of Cabot House, with the whole plot of the family's immortality and what to do with their father and the ancient alien artifact. So they still have their weird storylines that make this series so much fun. I don't love its side content on the same level as the previous 2 games, but it's still solid. Now, to rank them in a very close first place, and I'm still not sure if I'm right, but I'm gonna give it to Fallout New Vegas. It's honestly kind of funny, before getting to this point in the script, I said Fallout 3 had the best, but doing my research and touching up on the games, I think it's New Vegas, but just so barely. I think they have the same high quality like 3, and I know I was saying I don't love oversaturated side content, but they simply have more, and that more is also great. In second, we have Fallout 3. As a whole, I probably have more memories of the side content here, and it is still masterful, so it gets a proud second, and I wish I could tie it up for first. And in last, we have Fallout 4. The side content is still good, I think it's a step back compared to the previous 2 Fallouts. But now we can jump into our next topic, and that is the companions. Starting at the beginning once again with Fallout 3, this section is kind of unfair as not all the games have the same level of companions, but it is a feature that they all have, so I find it important to compare. Fallout 3 definitely has the least fleshed out companions out of these 3 games, as it doesn't really hold much bearing besides having someone to fight with you. There's no personal questline or development really for any of these characters besides one. We have Dogmeat, Jericho, and other fairly irrelevant people, but the highlight of this cast is Fox. He is a highly intelligent super mutant who we meet in Vault 87, and he plays a little role within the main story. But yeah, we really don't have much else to say about the companions here for Fallout 3, they boil down to helping you fight. They all got their own little personality, but there's nothing to it at all. It's just clearly the least developed out of the bunch. But jumping over to Fallout New Vegas though, it's a completely different story. This is a 180 in terms of quality as New Vegas knocks it out of the park here. Each companion has depth and development. They have their own quest lines, they have passive and active perks during gameplay, they have their own opinions about the world and different factions. These companions actually have a reason to be around outside of simply helping you fight. And oh my gosh, can they fight? Like, they are way too overpowered. We got characters like Boone and Veronica, as they're probably my two favorites, but we also got Lily, who I adore and has such a sad story. Then we got Arcade Gannon, EDE, Raoul, and Cass. All these people have great storylines that you get invested in and enjoy. And just like so much of Fallout New Vegas, they enhance the world around you by adding more perspectives and depth to it. But we can jump to our last game in Fallout 4. This title does not reach Fallout New Vegas level at all, but it has respectable companions that do at least play some role and have development and purpose. The personal quests aren't as fleshed out whatsoever as New Vegas, but they have an affinity system to get closer to them. There's also romance, but it amounts to absolutely nothing, so there's not much to mention there. And I don't think it delivers in the sheer amount of quality that New Vegas has, but there are a few that can rival them. Especially someone like Nick Valentine, who I think is one of the most interesting characters in the series. I love him so much, his struggle with his identity as a synth, his memories of another life. All of it is pretty gripping and engaging. But other characters are solid as well, like Piper and Hancock, and of course my goat, Dogmeat. Overall, the companions are good here, and don't do anything bad, but they definitely could have been better. This was a very short section, but to rank them now, we have Fallout New Vegas fairly comfortably in first here. It just easily has the most fleshed out companions. Next, we have Fallout 4. Nothing too special in terms of companions besides Nick, but still solid. And lastly, Fallout 3. Again, it's unfair since it's barely a feature here, but it's such a strong point in others that it had to be mentioned. But we can lead ourselves right into our second to last topic, and that is the narrative. We find ourselves talking about Fallout 3 again, and unfortunately, once again, it isn't positive. Now, I don't hate the story by any means here, that isn't the issue. It's just that narratively, it really falls flat for like majority of the time. I didn't connect to any of the characters, the plot wasn't too interesting, the ending kinda sucked. There's a lot of things I'll get into here. The premise of this game is that we start off in Vault 101. We watch ourselves grow up until inevitably our father escapes the vault to not be seen again. This causes chaos within the vault and you must escape to go after him. This opening is genuinely so iconic, so don't worry, I still think there are good moments in this story. Exiting the vault for the first time is such an iconic sequence. With the glare of the sun and having to adjust to it to then see this barren landscape will never get old. But the goal of the narrative and story is to find your father and why he left. This will lead us into conflicts between the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave in deciding what to do with Project Purity. And this will determine the future of the Wasteland. I think all my complaints narratively kind of come towards the end of it. But firstly, I don't think there is nearly enough player agency and choice. Yeah, I'm aware that isn't really Bethesda's strong suit within their stories, but still, I felt like nothing I said mattered in the entire main plot. And it was a very black and white good versus evil, which I don't mind if it's executed well, I'll love it. But when it's boring, it's really boring, and that's how I felt here. The Enclave versus the Brotherhood had no nuance at all, and it really made no sense to carry out the plan for the Enclave. Again, I'm fine with super evil groups, but make them interesting, cause the Enclave wasn't. And don't even get me started on the ending and their weird push to make the dumbest sacrifices imaginable. Firstly, your father makes no sense why he needed to die. It was such a forced death. I felt no emotion whatsoever, even though he's one of the most important characters and the one that you should have the deepest emotional bond with. And then the moment where you have to sacrifice yourself, it might actually be the most brain dead writing I've ever seen. In the vanilla version before the DLC, you have to sacrifice yourself to save Project Purity, even though you have a super mutant who is immune to radiation and would survive. But no, this is our destiny and we must do this ourselves.
We all have our own destinies, and yours culminates here. I would not rob you of that.
And with the Broken Steel DLC, you can get Fox to do it. Problem solved. Until the narrator in the end of the game just basically calls us a coward for not sacrificing ourselves.
But the child refused to follow the father's selfless example.
Like, why am I getting bashed for doing the logical thing? It's beyond dumb and really leaves the story with a bad taste in my mouth. Overall, the narrative here just doesn't do much for me at all. There are some bad parts, but there are some great ones as well, like the opening and Tranquility Lane. Those are iconic sequences. But with that, let's go into Fallout New Vegas. I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record here a bit, but it's a great story. There's so much choice variety and decision making with nuanced paths to take. Like, it's just really a great narrative that is elevated with compelling factions to explore and go down. The game, just like Fallout 3, has an awesome opening, but New Vegas, it's just a cinematic moment more than an actual opening gameplay sequence. We are the courier and are shot in the head, left to die by a man named Benny, and our goal is to chase him down.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
But through our pursuit, you get tangled up in a three-way political power struggle of who will control the Mojave Wasteland. This political power struggle is truly where Fallout New Vegas shines, because it is able to flaunt its strong points and strengths, which is their player agency and decisions. You are able to completely control what happens in this game and what will happen to the Mojave based on what you pick. It is not just, oh, you get to pick and it's boring. There are genuine debates and discussions to be had over what ending is better over others. What was the best option for the Mojave? We have the NCR ending, the Legion, Mr. House, or the Yes Man ending. All of these are very different from one another, but there are so many morally gray areas and implications over how these different people would lead the Mojave in the future and what they'll do with the control of it and the Hoover Dam. The NCR is more focused on democracy, the Legion prioritizes slavery and a dictatorship, Mr. House wants to make advancements in technology but at the expense of people's freedoms, and the Yes Man ending, you take control of the Mojave. Here you can see the variety in different endings. I do think the ending itself was a bit dialogue heavy. I remember fighting Lanius from the Legion, and oh my gosh, that conversation just kept going for years upon years, I felt like. And the final fight itself isn't the greatest thing ever. It's hard when the combat is just bad to make a final sequence be a fun one, but it's not terrible by any means. It's better than 3's, and I love the conclusion, as it really feels like one that you strived for and got. No matter what ending it was, you sided with them or yourself, and fought your way to achieve that goal, so it felt fulfilling. Overall, Fallout New Vegas thrives in its player agency, and the narrative is no different in that front. But they also brought a compelling narrative to where these choices were engaging to make, and you were excited to see what was to come. But that leaves us with Fallout 4's story, and a lot of people do not like this. I don't particularly love it either, but I'm not an adamant hater. I just don't care for most of what happens. Basically, the plot of the story is that we are in this vault, and while we are in it, our son gets kidnapped while we are in cryopods. You wake up many years later and then set off to find him. A lot of people don't like having this forced backstory on a character and feel like it limits role-playing capabilities, which I just simply disagree with. I think the limited role-playing aspect comes in the dialogue itself. We see countless games give a designated backstory of a character and you are still able to roleplay them. Fallout 4 just executed it poorly. It's not because of this backstory of a parent searching for their son. Also, outside of that, I really enjoy the opening as well. All Fallout games seem to do a good job with it. Especially with Fallout 4, I love seeing the pre-war world and seeing the events of the nuke hitting the ground and rushing for the vaults. It was intense and such a great hook to the title. Now, for the portions of the story that I struggle with a bit more, we'll start off with the factions. Compared to New Vegas, where I felt the different groups were the strong point narratively, that is not the case here. I don't think each one nearly gets fleshed out enough to be a valid option to pick. Like the Minutemen and Railroad just don't have the same depth and fleshed outness compared to the Brotherhood and the Institute. Which annoys me because especially the Railroad, I like their premise and setup, but they felt really sidelined compared to the others, and I didn't feel as much pull and influence from them in the main story. Like New Vegas' factions were actively influencing the game and you felt your decisions changing things as you played. But that wasn't the case with Fallout 4. I just simply wasn't as invested in their motives and reasonings as the previous title. But jumping to the next part that I think was also underutilized, we have the synths. I adore the concept and like the whole idea of having these artificial humans and having this tension of being unsure who is human, who's a synth. and I like the moral questions that are brought up with the synth's purpose and potential role in a society, and they are the central point for the factions and what is dividing them. Everything I said is awesome, but that really is as far as Fallout 4 dives into it. I don't think Fallout 4 really gives us enough of a chance to battle with the morality of different outcomes of the synths, and I don't believe there was enough of an influence on the world around us. The synths were great in concept, but not utilized to their fullest potential. And the last point I want to bring up is the plot twist with Sean. I know a lot of people don't like the twist, but my issues more or less come with the aftermath of it. I think the twist in of itself is fine, it's honestly pretty good, but I don't think the reveal really changes anything plot-wise. Of course, it changes a lot of the fact that our pursuit of our son is over with him being this grown man, but what I mean is there's no emotional connection to your son. There's no reason to side with him since you're blood. I don't think there's really much development in your relationship regardless of what you pick, and Sean's future really doesn't change that much depending on what you do. Overall though, I just wanted more from Fallout 4's story, especially since it had that potential to be great. I don't think it's outright bad as they have a lot of good pieces and plot points. I just don't think they're developed enough and a lot of it falls short in the end. But to rank these narratives, New Vegas is first, unsurprisingly. Second is Fallout 4, as at least it had a premise and plot that was interesting, and I was engaged for the most part. And in last, I have Fallout 3. This title really does fall short narratively as I don't think it does much of anything well. Besides the ending just being kinda bad, the story never pulled me in and remained fairly basic. But it did have some shining parts like the opening and Tranquility Lane. But we can jump to our last topic of the video, and that is the DLCs. To get it out of the way, I have not played through all the DLCs that are available in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, but I know what happens in the few that I haven't and will give my opinion more on the ones I have played, along with the ones I haven't and the plot summaries of them. Kicking things off with Fallout 3, there are a lot of great DLCs here. We have Operation Anchorage, The Pit, Broken Steel, Point Lookout, and Mothership Zeta. This is a really good lineup of DLCs, ranging from more just fun ones like Operation Anchorage and Mothership Zeta that don't play a role in advancing the narrative. Operation Anchorage, we fight through these simulations. Mothership Zeta, we get abducted by aliens and have to escape with these companions across time. Like, that's just so much fun. And then some with amazing storytelling and atmosphere like The Pit. This whole DLC focuses on a location called The Pit, which is controlled by slavers, and you face these difficult choices between the enslaved and this potential cure for the land's diseases. Next, we have Point Lookout, which is a DLC focused around finding this missing girl on an island, but leads into learning about the island's secrets and these factions within it. And then we have Broken Steel, which actually expands and fixes up the ending of the base game. All of these DLCs bring in something new to the game, and none of them are outright bad by any means. Some of them are fantastic. People adore The Pit for its great choices between supporting the slaves or Asher. Mothership Zeta was one of the wackiest DLCs I've ever played. Fallout 3's additional content does what it should strive to do, that is to expand on the story in any way that it needs to, give us brand new plotlines, and just some fun ones. But jumping into the next game that also handled its DLCs to an even higher regard is New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas once again did DLCs right. All of them from Dead Money, Old World Blues, Lonesome Road, Honest Hearts. They all have aspects that are so special and unique from one another. Dead Money does a brilliant job with its atmosphere, making it this tense and scary vibe with not being able to bring your gear. The plot and premise is instantly intense, with the explosive callers being forced to do what this evil cult leader is telling you to do. It's such a great time and such a tonal switch from the base game. But we also have Old World Blues, which just again is such a fun one. The dialogue is top tier with the think tank, having our brain stolen. It is some crazy stuff. Lonesome Road explores really serious themes of consequence and responsibility for what we've done, and wraps up the game very well. And Honest Hearts gives us Joshua Graham, who is easily one of my favorite characters in the series. His dialogue is perfect. Fallout New Vegas really doesn't have a single bad DLC, and they are for the most part all very well regarded. Now lastly, we have Fallout 4. I am mostly going to be speaking on Far Harbor, as the other ones aren't much besides the Nuka World one, and the others are just settlement and building DLCs. But Far Harbor is a masterpiece. The premise of this one is to find a teenage girl named Kasumi Nakano who believes she may be a synth. Through this, we face moral dilemmas with different groups such as Far Harbor, Children of Adam, Acadia. We also get one of my favorite characters in Dima. He is so compelling, and all the groups create such interesting dynamics. Far Harbor trying to protect themselves from the fog, Acadia being a refuge for sins, the Children of Adam wanting the island to be enveloped in fog. We have choices that will completely affect the island, and it isn't black and white or an easy decision. Dima has done a lot wrong, but there's a lot wrong with the other groups as well, and all of this will affect the outcome and future of Kasumi. Overall, Fallout 4 really only has this DLC to write home about, but damn, is it a good one! To do our last ranking before tallying up the points, in first place comfortably we have Fallout New Vegas. In second place we have Fallout 3 since it just has a really solid range of DLCs. And in last place we have Fallout 4. Even though Far Harbor is fantastic, it really is the only good DLC that it has. But that is that. All the categories are finished. We can finally tally up my points and see which Fallout game is the best in my mind. All of these titles are special in their own way, and I had a ball playing all of them at different times in my life. But to get into the rankings, in third place we have Fallout 4. With a total of 11 points. I think this game does a lot well. I enjoy the combat a lot, and it is the best in the series. It has a good setting, I like exploring, and Far Harbor is amazing. But it drops the ball with RPG mechanics, side content, the story a bit, so that's why it fell in last. Next up, in second place, we have Fallout 3. And it got a total of 12 points. I'm honestly surprised it ended up as close as it did to Fallout 4, because I personally like Fallout 3 a lot more, but these point systems are nowhere close to being a perfect representation of how I feel about these games. Fallout 3 has one of my favorite settings in gaming, the side content is phenomenal, the atmosphere and vibe are unforgettable. It's one of the games I hold the most memories of ever. It really does have a special place in my heart, but it does fall short with its combat and narrative. But in first, with not much of a surprise, we do have Fallout New Vegas with a total of 19 points. I do think the point tally is a little bit far apart, as I do think Fallout 3 and New Vegas are closer together. Either way though, this really is such a special video game. Narratively, the RPG side of things, companions, side content, it nails basically every aspect you could want from an RPG, besides the combat not being all that good. But that's really its only issue, along with its bugginess. It's one of my favorite games ever, but out of pure enjoyment, I like Fallout 3 more, but I think New Vegas is the better game. So these are the final rankings. Fallout 4 in third, 3 in second, and New Vegas in first. So in the end, that is my own personal list. But if you are playing these games for the very first time and are trying to figure out which one to play first, I can give you some pointers. If you are someone that doesn't mind older games and can deal with that, I would say start off playing Fallout 3, and then go from Fallout 3, then to New Vegas, and then Fallout 4. If you do have an issue playing older games and don't enjoy them, just play Fallout 4, you'll have an amazing time with that title. And lastly, if you want to play what I think personally just is the best one first, then play Fallout New Vegas. Or if you want to play a game that's going to have the same vibe as the second season of the TV series, play Fallout New Vegas. But overall, the Fallout franchise is such a special one for me. It is one of the first series I completely dove into, and I still love them now. Each game has such a charm to it that is so applicable to Fallout. It really does have its own energy and feeling, and I adore it. Even with these rankings, all these titles are special games, and I love the franchise. Hopefully the second season of the Fallout show is as good as the first, and we don't have to wait another decade for Fallout 5. If you did make it to the end of today's video, thank you guys so much for watching. I absolutely adore the Fallout franchise, like I've said a lot of times throughout this video, and with the second season coming out soon, I thought this was a great time to revisit these games. And I was just reminded on how much I love this franchise, and this was a very big and ambitious project for me. So if you did enjoy, it would mean a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Your support means the absolute world to me. I'll see you in the next video, and God bless.